Right. Hi, friends. Welcome to Sybil's Lab of Cartomantics. I'm Amelia.
I'm Danielle.
And if you are new to Sybil's Lab, I know we've had some new subscribers lately. And if you're just finding us for the first time, just to give you a little breakdown of who we are Sybil's Lab of Cartomantics. We are professional readers as well as tarot educators. We have a great shop full of all of readings, mentorships, as well as go at your own pace, self-paced courses that you can find down below. But enough about that. We are here for a video. Danielle, tell us what we are here to do.
Today we're going to talk about how to read tarot like a something. So what we've done, if you are a tarot tuber or you've watched videos before about finding decks for your counsel, so thinking of different imaginative figures who might be giving you advice, like the crone, the teacher, the best friend, what we're doing today is instead of pulling out decks that occupy those voices, we're going to think about what that voice would sound like if we pulled some cards. So we're going to ask questions, practice with some cards, and see what does the salty crone actually sound like. She's going to be our first figure. But before we get into our questions, and kind of go with us, people, it's a little weird to explain, but it'll make more sense as we go. But what deck will you be using today, Amelia?
I'm using the Morgan Greer, a nice neutral, like well-rounded, do-it-all sort of deck.
What the kids call an all-rounder.
An all-rounder. We love the Morgan Greer.
I'm using the Arcus Arcanum. This is an out-of-print deck, but it too is nice, neutral, all-rounder. We'll see as we go. It's my first time using it for this kind of work. I've used it for myth work in the past. I have not pulled it out for example, the salty crone though. So we'll see if this works. I have some other decks in case of emergency. But first, let's talk about the salty crone, the first of our 5 figures. And before we pull cards and see what she sounds like, who is this? Who are we talking about, Amelia? What is a salty crone in the metaphorical sense?
So, and to kind of like pull back a little bit, the way I'm kind of viewing this whole exercise is almost like tarot role playing. Like we're embodying different characters to see how they would read tarot. So to me, the salty crone is the she is a straight shooter. Like she is not here for your nonsense. She's going to deliver wisdom, but it's going to come with a bite and a little bit of a sting. Like it's not going to feel good to get the wisdom that you get from the salty crone, but it's going to be useful and it's going to be helpful.
I like that.
Like
I am making a podcast lately and I just put out an episode about Baba Yaga. So in my mind, that's who I'm thinking about. Like the woman in the forest who eats children. She's a salty crone.
well,
She is impatient. She is not here for like whatever. Like she might eat us if we aren't getting on top of our stuff. But we come with real questions to the salty crone, right? I think that's something that's good about her, and something that's a part of this exercise that I hope you find as we go along is that I think that often when we're reading cards, we do this anyway without doing it mindfully. Like when we lay out a spread, we might be perceiving or like sort of engaging with the cards in the voice of a best friend. And it's helpful to imagine like what that same spread like might sound like through the voice of one of these different metaphorical figures. So let's get started with the salty crone and think of an example question, or not think of, we have a list. Amelia, what is an example question that we can ask her? Then we're going to pull some cards and see what she actually has to say.
all right, I'm going to go with the first question because I feel like the salty crone would love this. Our first, and we pulled these from a blog that we'll link down below because it's a list of like 45 questions that you can even use for practice. Like they don't have to be questions that you want to ask, but good reading practice if you feel so inclined. But the first question that we were going to ask the salty crone, or the question that we're going to ask the salty crone, is should I get back with my ex?
Why did you were especially excited about choosing this question? So can you say first why you chose this question? Because I think a lot of people would resist a yes or no question. And a lot of people would roll their eyes about this kind of question anyway. But I think that your answer to this might actually go with one of the things we were thinking about when we identified our 5 voices, which is, when do we need their wisdom? Like, when do we need the salty crone's wisdom? So would you suggest, you just like this question, or would you suggest that the salty crone is especially suited for should I get back with my ex?
I mean, we have a couple of other archetypes on this, or like figures on this list that I think could answer this well. But like, we've all been there, right? We've all had this question in our head at some point in our lives. Don't lie to yourself and tell me that you haven't. And like, this is the question that we do not need to go to the hype friend who's going to tell us yes to every dumb idea that we have. Like, we need a kick in the pants with this question, whether it be the kick in the pants of like, yes, you should get back with your ex, but here's the caveat, or no, are you crazy? Like, what are you thinking? And the reason I picked this question, like, I know, yes, like yes or no questions are kind of a hot button issue. And I think we've talked about this in a video before. I personally have nothing wrong with yes or no questions. We have yes or no questions in our lives. Like, yes, they go, like, every yes or no question is also a pretty layered question underneath it all. And I think it's okay to like start at the top layer, which is like, should I get back with my ex? Should I try to look for a new job? Like, these sorts of questions are the real things that we think about. You know, we don't immediately think about all the layers of like, is my ex, you know, whatever. Like, we don't go there first. The first thing we go to is like, we need that answer. And that's okay. Like, I think that's a very human thing to want. And we can start there with a tarot reading for sure. So, and I think the salty crone would have no issue giving the honest answer in this scenario.
I think that's right. I think a question like this, she's good for a question like this if we really want to hear an answer and we know we need someone to impatiently yell the answer at us, or we're going to pretend like it never happened, right? Like, we need her if we're going to resist the answer that we don't want to hear, because she is going to be inflexible about it. So I'm going to pull one card. Did we say one card per person to see like what the salty crone has to say, with permission to pull extras if we need a little bit of clarification?
Okay. And we're going to imagine that this is a person outside of us that's asking us this question, right? Okay.
The husband, we like him.
Yeah.
We don't need an ex.
Oh God, no.
I, for my card, received the Pope.
Ooh. I'm not familiar with this deck. You're going to have to talk to me about this later. Fascinating. Okay. I received the 5 of Cups.
This does feel, I want to sit for a minute to think of exactly what the words are, but this combination of cards feels very unequivocal in not getting the this Pope I'm reading have some standards, you idiot. Like, you know, you have some standards, stick by the standards you have. And next to that 5 of Cups, it feels like a reminder of what happened when we had no standards. Like, I'm getting a vibe that's like you let a guy neg you and you need to not go put yourself back in that scenario. What are you getting?
Yeah, I mean, reading these two together, I'm getting this like, did you learn nothing? Like, did you not retain any of the information, any of the like the data that you collected from that relationship that shows you that it was not a good situation?
I really like that. Did you learn nothing?
Like, it's like, you are so much better than this. Did you not figure that out?
Oh, I really like that. You know, so it's helpful, especially if you're in a situation where for this or any other exercise, you're pulling just one card or 1 or 2 cards to really give yourself over to the imagery in the card. So here, this is an unusual mark of a Pope. We have a sword down there. What do you make of that sword? And he's in front of a kind of veil like the High Priestess. or the papess in this deck. This feels like a salty crone pope. Like he is ready to enforce the teaching if we're not getting the message. The sword is on the ground, sure, but it's still in frame. There's something interesting about that. I like that.
I do
All
find
right.
it interesting. One thing I love about this Five of Cups is that the liquid coming out of the spilled cups is bright red.
So interesting. What is that liquid?
I mean, I think it's supposed to be wine, but in this context, I see it as like the bloodshed from heartbreak. Like that is, I mean, this situation that with this ex of this person that asked this question is like this was an incredibly painful experience that you seem to have amnesia around. Um,
I like that because the Pope is in some ways about institutional memory. Like have memory, you cataloged some things in your brain. So yeah, remember that pain, not Six of Cups memory, but like remember what brought you to this place and what gave you the standards that made this person your ex anyway, or what framework ended the relationship. So that's interesting. Is there anything else you would say about a salty crone? Are there questions that she's not good for? I don't think if we're in a tender place, like, so not in a I don't want to hear the answer, but in a really tender place, she's not the one to call on. Um, or if I wonder, what do you think if you're in a place that's kind of exploratory? So you're doing some spiritual work or some investigation of that kind. Is that a place for the salty crone or not really?
I think it can be if you're I mean, there's something about the salty crone that it's like she does not mince words. Like she is not here to have have these like really long and winding conversations. However, that doesn't mean that she can't go deep. She's just going to go deep in like a straight shot.
Yeah.
And so I think you just have to be like if you want to meander, if you want to wind, then this is not the character to call on. But if you want to go deep and you want to go deep in a very direct, like take the direct route, do not pass go, like do not collect $200. Like this is the person to go to for those types of conversations. Yeah, she can tell you the meaning of life, but like that's it. She's gonna tell it to you in a sentence and be done. And be like, let's move on.
I like that. We're not going to exhaust the conversation with her. I don't think she's going to belabor any points. Let's go to our next figure. So we're talking the straight shooter here. We talked about the crone as a straight shooter. I have to say before we leave the crone that I really want to be a salty crone when I grow up.
You're too friendly. You're too nice.
At the hag witch. That's what I'm not her yet, but like I kind of want to be a witch in the wood who eats children. It's aspirational. We talked about the salty crone as a straight shooter, but we're saying here the straight shooter. What is the difference? Like how
this is unfeeling. Like okay. I feel like the salty crone is, for in our example question, she was like, "You idiot, you didn't like, have you not learned? Did you learn nothing?" And it's because she is invested in the outcome. Like,
yeah.
She might be salty, but she still wants what's best for you, and she gets frustrated when you're not making choices that align with what she thinks is best. The straight shooter, I feel like, is uninvested.
Like I like that. Dispassionate, the lawyer, the air. Like we're in air, we're in clear argument, direct commentary, and disinvestment. Okay.
Yeah, this is like the super objective voice, like as objective as you can possibly get with tarot. Because there's so much about tarot that is subjective, but this is that, like, yeah.
Is this the kind of voice? So we have a different question for this voice, but is this the kind of voice that's good for should I get back with my ex? When do we need their wisdom? I don't think this is the voice for spiritual work. I don't think this is the voice for sort of mythic or metaphorical work. I've pulled out the cards before when I'm working on an essay or something. This is certainly a voice for that. I do not need any kind of winding road. Like
You
I
know, yeah, and I think, especially with issues where we are very emotional, I think this voice can be helpful, but it's like the salty crone is the like harsh straight answer with a little shove that comes with it. And
mm,
if you sometimes you need that shove, and if you are in a space where you need a shove with your answer, I don't think you're going to get it from the straight shooter. Like I don't think that's what this voice can do. Um, you have to be ready to like take the answer and the wisdom that's given and like do something with it. They're not going to like push you in the right direction. You know what I mean?
I really liked the metaphor of place. Before I've talked a lot about that. I think of the salty crone as like the hut in the woods with the one, the one old woman who's hunched over. I think of the straight shooter as come into my office, like as the lawyer who's like, all right, come in, sit down. The spare decorations, the guy who you're like, do you have any pictures for the wall? This is very much a guy in a suit to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's going to give you good advice,
Yes.
but you have to take it and do something with it. Okay. So our question is, I feel like this is a good career
Okay.
person. Is why am I feeling stuck in my career?
Ooh. Okay.
So that's what this person is going to answer.
We have the 10 of Swords. Speaking of,
Ooh, hello.
this very much smacks of Thoth, Golden Dawn, Lord of Ruin. Like we see the ruined background, we see the crows or the carrion birds flying. We see just absolute evisceration. He's there, but he's there with no other fellow soldiers. His sword's beat up, and just it feels like those are the swords left over from the bodies of soldiers who are no longer with him. So it's been a rough one. So this straight shooter does not have any good news either. So what is your card? What do we have to add to this 10 of Swords?
I pulled the Knight of Swords.
Oh, boy.
And we've got a burning tower in the background. And there's like ambiguously kind of orangey red on the sword. It could be a reflection from the fire behind the knight. It could also be blood. It's not super specific. And he is like in stark profile.
These feel like the same guy to me.
Yeah, they do. These decks speak well together, but we're not. Are we reading them together? We kind of are. I guess we're
Yeah, I think so.
reading.
These very much, they're in different moments. Which of our cards comes first in the story of these two cards? That feels like it comes first because the fire is raging and this is like the burned out building. So that's the night before and this is the morning after.
I mean, I feel like what the straight shooter would say with these cards is like you've invested your time and energy in the wrong place.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
You've made the wrong investment here.
This feels very much like this is no longer the environment for you. Maybe we're going out of business. Like the business is no longer viable. Maybe this was never the place to be to begin with, but like this is an exhausted site. There is no room for growth here. There's no soil. There's no nothing. And everyone else is gone. I mean, this is a stark this is straight shooting.
Yeah, well, and that fire in the background is so striking. It's like this person is not seeing that the building is on fire, and that
these cards speak so well together.
They do. These two decks, I'm surprised, but
they're ambiguously medieval. I think that's what it is. They're both kind of set in this. They're both actually kind of in this groovy medieval.
We love a 70s medieval revival.
Yes, we do. I think this is 84, 86. All right. Let's see. What is our next voice? Our best friend. the best friend has to have some good news. No one's had good news before. So let's see what we want to ask about our best friend. Who are they in the metaphorical sense? You're my best friend. So is this when I get a card from you?
I mean, this is like when you want someone who's going to talk you through it, right? Who's going to listen to you, let you whinge a little bit, let you have your feelings and your moment about it all. And is maybe going to like gently suggest, but also like, I mean, you're my best friend and sometimes you're not so gentle with me.
Do you think,
They're gonna say what we need to hear, but like it's gonna come with good vibes, like for lack of a better.
I like that. The best friend is the one who says you shouldn't get back with your ex because you deserve better, not can you learn nothing. So it might be the same message, but it certainly comes with a different texture. Or why am I stuck in my career? What does that best friend sound like with these cards?
Oh gosh, I feel like the best friend is like is like you need it, you're better than all of this.
Yeah.
You like you've worked so hard and you've given so much of yourself and they've paid you back in nothing. Like I feel like the best friend is also going to rally around you. Like they're always going to be on your team even when you've made some bad decisions.
I like that. It makes me think of when we read for people, certainly at live events. So when we're reading in person, so it's a complete, cold relationship. We usually have not seen these people before. I'm not going to speak in the voice of the salty crone. I'm not going to speak in the straight shooter's voice either, especially if it's a kind of sensitive question and I'm not sure how to calibrate it. That best friend voice is an I'm on your team. Like I like that, and yet it's still honest. Like the best friend wants to be clear with you. It's a good voice to inhabit if we're reading for somebody who is in a tender place but deserves the truth. All right. So anything else before we get to the question, and then you can tell us what our question
Is there anything that the best friend isn't good for, reading wise?
Again, I wouldn't pull out the salty crone, the straight shooter, or the best friend for spiritual work, for wisdom question, maybe for a wisdom question. So I made a video a while ago about what is the nature of God? How do we engage with pain? Like, these big kind of, I don't like Bobby of God is not. I don't want to be put in my place for that. I told you before I've met with like a kind of angry rabbi once. I imagine that is the salty crown. I don't need to invite the lawyer to my spiritual investigation. I could sit with a best friend. I would sit with you and do some wisdom questions. So yeah, I think this, I like the idea of that kind of voice, but I don't know what I wouldn't invite you best friend into.
I don't know that there's anything that I wouldn't. I just have to be ready for a certain kind of answer. I actually think this is probably one of the more common voices that we read, especially for ourselves. We read tarot in. This and another one that's on our list. I think those are like the two main voices that a lot of people might go to tarot for.
Yeah.
So I think it comes naturally to use this voice for a lot of different questions. Okay. So, best friend question is, what is it that I'm ignoring or not seeing?
What is it that I'm ignoring or not seeing? Something else I want to say as we pull a card, our other two voices, the salty crone and the straight shooter, were not interested in having conversation after the answer. The straight shooter would probably answer follow-up questions. I feel like the salty crone would be like, you're out of luck. I'm done. I gave you the wisdom. I think the best friend wants to continue the conversation, like is ready to pull some more cards and do some journaling and whatever. So if we need direct, short, clear, no conversation, I don't think the best friend is great for that because the best friend wants to talk and journal and journey. All right. So remind us of the question. I got the 9 of Cups.
What is it I'm ignoring or not seeing? I got the 9 of Wands.
Ooh, 2 9s. This is a little bit of an unusual 9 of Cups. Normally we see like, big pimpin' sitting in the card. enjoying his best life. And here we have two. And
Look
we
at that
also,
giant cup.
it is a big giant cup. There's a ship going down, if I'm right. Is that what that is? Looks like
Mhm.
sails. So the party is ending after this. This is like end of the night.
I feel like what the best friend is saying, if these two cards are speaking to each other, is like, you don't have to keep pushing. Like you can stop and like savor what it is that you've done so far. I think the best friend is saying like you're missing over some opportunities for pleasure because you're too busy on like working the grind,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Have
Um,
some chill.
yeah, like this best friend wants you to like go out and let loose for a night.
Yeah, and it does feel like a night. It doesn't feel like a go enjoy like the fruits of your pleasure for here and forever. It feels like your best friend is saying you've put in the fight, validating like you fought the good fight. Go have a really big drink. There was a place in St. Louis that you could go and get like big fishbowl drinks. And me and my girlfriends in college, everyone has this place. With me and my girlfriends in college, would be like 8 of us in this huge fishbowl of a drink. That's what this reminds me of. It's margarita night.
Yes, go have Ritas with the girls. Um, should we ask, do we feel like we need a follow-up
Yeah.
question for this or like
The
to have
best friend always wants to answer a follow-up question. So what is the follow-up? What do we do after that night out? Like I'm
oh,
hearing because we
what
need
next?
we need that recharge. It feels like the best friend is saying you really need to give yourself that permission. Okay, we have strength.
What do we do after that? We have Queen of Cups.
These speak so well to each other. That's
Yeah.
the same lady, right? It feels like that Queen of Cups is saying after your night out, don't forget to continue nourishing yourself. Like it's not pleasure is done, no more pleasure for you, but take sips, drink deeply of pleasure all along the way, but you're ready for some heavy lifting.
Yeah, you're fortified now. Uh,
Yes.
ooh, I want to ask the best friend what happens if I don't? What happens if I
This is
just
what happens with a best friend reading. You're like, girl, what's next?
yeah. What happens if I don't? What happens if I keep pushing?
All right, we have the Hanged Man.
We have the Magician.
So if you don't do the night out, that's what you're saying? Like,
Mhm.
okay, well, it feels like the best friend is saying, if you don't mindfully take that time out, life will put you in timeout. There is something that's going to put you in timeout. Your will is going to be suspended one way or another. And you get to choose whether you make, you define the moment or whether you go until your body gives out or until whatever. What are you reading from that?
Yeah, well, and I feel like the best friend is saying like the idea that you have that you can do it all is an illusion. Like that's not real. You're not actually doing it all.
Yeah.
And you're kind of suffering. Um See, we love the best friend. I always feel good after I like read with a best friend, you know?
I think it's really funny. We didn't want to ask follow-up questions to the salty crone. We didn't want to ask the straight shooter.
I really think this is the voice that a lot of us read tarot in, whether it be for ourselves or for other people. When I sit down with clients, the best friend is the voice that I often inhabit. Um, they're so unintimidating. The salty crone is intimidating. So is the straight shooter. Like, you know,
It feels like it's fun even when the news isn't great news.
yeah, it's validating. The best friend is validating. Okay, who's our next figure?
We are going to the spiritual teacher. So let's talk about the spiritual teacher. Who are they, metaphorically speaking, and when do we need their wisdom? This is a voice for wisdom question.
Yes. I feel like this is also a bit of a dispassionate voice, just with a completely different tone from the straight shooter. Like This is not, I'm going to give you straight advice and like that's it. It's like I am going to be really honest about the depths of existence and you can take it or leave it, you know? But I don't know. What do you think the spiritual teacher is?
As I sit and think about it, I've met with a lot of spiritual professionals over the years. Like there was a rabbi that I like went to see sometimes when I was in undergrad, and rabbis I worked with doing Jewish studies professionally. I have a priest. There's a nun who I spent a lot of time with in Chicago. And I'm thinking about the kinds of questions I took to them, and they were very much like, here are the big questions. I want to hand these off because I don't know what to do with them. Like I asked my what did I asked my priest some years ago. I think I told you about this, about what happens to my dog in the afterlife. I was very tortured. He had a very ill animal at that time. And I was very tortured about this. We were actually traveling in Italy at the time when I asked him, and he had an interesting answer. And then Pope Francis said dogs go to heaven. Pope Francis is a spiritual teacher. He was before he passed. But it's always a spiritual teacher I trust, because there are some I don't trust, right? Like I think that this is a tricky category for some of us, because in the archetypes of the major arcana, this is somewhere between the high priestess and the pope or the hierophant. And a lot of people have very fraught relationships with the hierophant, because that figure stands in for like a kind of traumatizing or challenged relationship with institutionalized religion. But that is a spiritual teacher when a spiritual teacher is in light. So like I want us to recover this spiritual teacher category. We're talking about the healthy one.
Yeah, I feel like this is the person you go to when you want depth, but might be a little overwhelmed at getting there on your own. They are going to be deep, and they are going to get you there, and make it feel less daunting, I hope. And explain. I mean, some of my best spiritual teachers I've had in my life have been so adept at explaining big cosmic concepts in such a simple way, for not, like in a way that I can understand, in a way that I can absorb and hold on to. And I feel like the spiritual teacher gives you something to walk away with. Like they might leave you with a question that you can go then work out on your own.
The best spiritual teachers leave you with a question, don't they?
Oh it's yeah, like, I mean Yoda.
Yeah.
This is the Yoda of the reading voices.
I imagine, so in my mind's eye, the spiritual teacher tends to be like an older figure, like the salty crone, but the spiritual teacher wants to have a continued conversation. It doesn't feel like dropping wisdom and then leaving and running in the other direction, or like, leave me alone. Because they want to teach us something. So yeah, like the good ones, the good spiritual teachers leave us with a nugget to continue engaging with, so that we come back later. I also don't think you visit the spiritual teacher once. Hopefully you have that conversation and you come back later with an even deeper question. So let's see, what are we asking this spiritual teacher? When do we not want to visit the spiritual teacher? Anything to say about that?
We don't want to visit the spiritual teacher when we just want an answer.
I don't think the spiritual teacher is who you call about the ex.
Not unless you want like a lecture.
That's right. We got the Pope. For that one. The spiritual teacher came to town anyway.
Yeah, I feel like when you, because the spiritual teacher, I don't think is going to answer your question all the way. They're going to like get you part of the way there and then let you do the rest of the answering. And so if you just want an answer, I don't think the spiritual teacher is the way to go.
that question about why you're stuck in your career, at first I'm thinking like, oh, okay, the spiritual teacher not great for that. But I actually think the spiritual teacher is great for that if the conversation you want to have when you're asking is something about vocation. So not like how do I get a promotion or why am I stuck at this pay, but like why am I stuck in this vocation when I feel a calling to something different. So it
Yeah.
depends on what the nature of the conversation we want to have. Um, and it's good to kind of clarify the nature of our questions in that way because it's the same question ish, but like not really. And we can, in some way, shape the question we're asking by the voice we call to when we're thinking about how that answer comes through. All right. So, what is our question?
Our question is there any meaning in my life? That's the spiritual teacher question. I pulled this off the internet, folks. I did not make up these questions myself.
Is there any meaning of it? That's a yes no question. And all I can think is Baba Yaga would just say no and slam the door.
No.
No, there is no meaning in your life. A spiritual teacher who says no, there's no meaning in your life is like the worst spiritual teacher ever. We got the Queen of Coins.
Ooh, we got the Knight of Pentacles.
This is so wild, you guys. This is so wild. So we're both in the Earth suit. We're both in the Earth court. It feels like the Knight serves the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
She's sitting with all of that treasure in her lap.
But also look behind her.
Yeah.
Look at the life she's built, her home, her trees.
I like that. And the green cloak, which is very like vibrant. That brown is earth and soil and growth. So even though there's that material growth in her lap, it feels like a richness of a deeper kind. And show us him. What details would you notice in that card?
So I notice how covered he is by all of his armor. And then we have like his plumage in the back almost looks like oak leaves.
Yeah.
So we've got that kind of that growth and that earthiness.
That sun.
And that sun, the like blood red of the sun behind him, as well as that like really stark yellow sky.
Well, I don't think you ask is there something or nothing and get this card with all that treasure, and the answer is no. Like, yes, there is richness. So what is the answer beyond like, yes, there is meaning? It feels like there is meaning in the most material sense. So not meaning, it's an abstract question. Like, what is the meaning? Big question mark in the sky. It's the kind of wisdom question. It feels like a wisdom question with a material answer.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there is meaning on the earth, in the ground, in our families, in our environment. Like, really like that.
Well, I also get the sense of the knight as like he's the seeker, right? Like he's the one that's going on a quest. And I think the meaning, like the question that the spiritual teacher would leave you with is like what the meaning is in the seeking. And so you have to figure out like what life is it that you're seeking and wanting to build. Like, and the meaning is in the building of that life. The meaning is in the like the striving for and the reaching for that life. You know, if you're not longing and yearning and wanting and desiring,
Yeah.
then yeah, your life might be a little meaningless. Because you're not I mean, it's not like contentedness is like akin to death or anything like that, but like that there's a movement to it. Like stagnation is when you become meaningless. And so as long as you're seeking whatever it is that's most precious to you, that treasure, so to speak, that's the meaning.
That sun and this blue sky makes me feel like the answer in part is just open your eyes. Like, wake up. It's bright. It's there. you're asking this abstract question when it's all around you. This feels, I'm very much in the throes of Lent and journaling and spending time with the desert mothers, and this feels very desert mothers. It's been a lot of like, you're asking these big spiritual questions when it's dirt and desert and like what's around you. It's a really meaningful answer. I like that. This is, the other questions are fun exercises, but like I'm good. This guy over here, he's good. My career, it's good. But this is a question that I would ask, and that feels like an answer that's helpful beyond just the exercise that we're doing here. So thanks for being here for this benefit, guys. What is our fifth one? Let's see. Anything else about the spiritual teacher before our final?
No, I mean, I think the spiritual teacher is also one that you could like sit and pull more and more cards with. But I think there's a caution to doing that with the spiritual teacher, because you could start spinning a little bit, because there is an ambiguity to how they answer questions, where it's the answer is sensed, it's not necessarily like explicit. And if you go too far with that ambiguity, then everything just kind of feels meaningless. So I think, take a little bit. I think when I sit down with the spiritual teacher in tarot, I have to just take a little bit and like walk away from it and ponder and think. And
I like that. Come back later.
yeah,
It feels like make a point to come back later because there's so much more fruit. But like a little bit. Yeah, I like it. All right, our fifth and our final voice figure counselor that we're thinking about is the nurturer. If we're thinking in the major arcana, this is very empress, very arms open. What else would we say about who she is? I am sheing her. I very much gendered these figures, but so this is very empress in my mind. What else would you say about this figure, this voice?
I mean, I think so. I mentioned that I think the best friend is the voice that we often read in. I feel like the nurturer is the other voice that we often read for ourselves in. Like, I mean, well, maybe I'm speaking for myself. Maybe I'm just assuming other people are like me. But like when I first started reading tarot and going to tarot, I wouldn't say first. There were moments in my early tarot reading life where I needed the voice of my mom. Like I needed a mom voice. And tarot provided that for me. So I feel like, this is the mother, the grandmother, the I mean, for me, my nurturer and my main nurturer in my human life was my father. So I feel like that, it can have a masculine voice as well. But that person who's gonna like deliver the wisdom with a cookie, like it's gonna feel good too,
The voice that says you're not eating enough. You're not eating enough.
Take care of you, has your best interest in mind, and really is deeply invested on setting you on the right course, or in a healthy course.
I like that that note about healthy course. We know, guys, we have a lot of fun on this channel, but we are very aware the sorts of sensitivities that people bring to the tarot, like the wounds and like challenges that we're coming to the cards with sometimes, like deep and difficult stuff when we're grieving, when we're there's some tender stuff that we bring to tarot. And when it's the most tender, sometimes the safest and healthiest voice that we need, even if eventually we need a straight shooter or something, we need to be safe and protect ourselves, and the voice of the nurturer does that.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
the nurturer, because getting the 9 of Swords through the salty crone, not safe sometimes. The nurturer can always hold that 9 of Swords and soften it, though, because it's those hard cards that are
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like this is the voice that you go to when you are feeling the most tender.
it's
Um,
the voice you call when you pick up the phone when you need someone to talk you off a ledge, like a metaphorical ledge, like I'm about to lose it, either because stuff is falling apart or I'm super mad or whatever. It is that voice of anchoring and calm and love. It feels like there's a lot of love here.
and I kind of wanted to make like a side, I guess, a little serious note with this voice in particular. I know a lot of us in this community tend to have fraught relationships with the like biological family members in our life. And I think this voice is a great one to go through and like processing that with professional help as well, if that's like available to you. But I do feel like I remember for me, because I have a fraught relationship with my mother. And I felt like this voice was inaccessible when I first wanted to be able to like access this. And I have come like over the years came to realize that like it is very accessible and it's healing. Like as corny as I know that like word can feel, and you know what does it mean now because we've overused it so much on social media, it can be really healing to like find a space where this is the voice that you're listening to. And to be able to like, especially if you're reading for yourself, to be able to give that to yourself is like, it's monumental, it's big.
Is
um Okay, so question for our nurturer, or is there anything else that you okay. Um so my question that I picked for the nurturer, which I feel like is such a like this is such a mom question, which is what do I need to know to make the best decision?
ooh.
I don't know about what. This is the question that I got, but like what do I need to know to make the best decision?
I've enjoyed thinking about the other voices in relationship to these questions. So like what kind of answer does the spiritual teacher bring versus to that kind of question versus the salty crone or the straight shooter? I think the salty crone says like I feel like the salty crone I always envision the salty crone is just irritated that I asked.
You know this. Why are you coming to me?
Yes, yes, rolling my eyes like you know this. All right, I got the 5 of coins.
I got the Ace of Pentacles.
What is happening? There is magic.
Magic.
This too is a very unusual 5 of coins or 5 of pentacles. We seem to have a couple in kind of material need up here. We have someone coming with a contract, maybe like kicking them out of their home, and 2 diabolical at the bottom of the card.
Look at those daisies, though.
Every suit has its own flower that is in all of the cards. So yeah, we have daisies here in the coin suit.
On this one, we have, I think those are lilies over here on the left. We have the rose. We have a path, or like an archway, a threshold, if you will. And then we've got our traditional hand offering a coin. And there's water in the background.
And that is outside versus this being trapped in a building, feeling cornered, feeling, desperate, in need, feeling the pressure. I mean, this is really an uncomfortable. It is helpful to imagine ourselves sometimes in the card. If you're this figure, these figures in the back, you feel crowded, uncomfortable, someone's coming at you versus that like sort of freedom and outside, beautiful garden you have. We need to get outside. It feels like that path is saying we need a way through. Like there's something about
Well,
this that feels like this, and we need to get outside of it and find a path through.
I also feel like the voice of the mother would assure you that you're never so far in that you can't start
Yeah.
over and walk away. Like you can't walk away and start over. Um, it's never too late to choose something different and to try again. I think sometimes, I mean, looking at that 5 of coins, I'm like thinking about moments in our life where we feel like we're in over our heads. And kind of like there's nothing, like we're just going to be stuck, like this is just the way it's going to be forever. And that it's never going to get any better. And I feel like the nurturer says, like, it's okay. Like you can, there's a way out of this, there's a way through this. And you can also just start over. Like you can go back to the drawing board and figure something else out.
I really like that. The story I'm seeing in this card is really like, the over-mortgaged getting kicked out of your home and you saying that the nurturer says, like, it's okay. It's beautiful out there. Like there's a doorway to something else. Like even if this isn't really like that. Isn't that that's a fascinating 5 of coins.
That deck is interesting.
It is very interesting. It's a shame that it's out of print. All right. Is this a voice that we ask follow-up questions to?
Oh, I think you can, for sure.
So what is the way through? I mean, if this voice is saying, like, it's never too late, and I also feel a kind of give yourself permission to quit if you need to. Give yourself permission to exit the situation. And sometimes we need that permission. Like, what's next? What is the next chapter? I got the Valet or Page of Swords. If you get a swords card, these decks are going to start dating.
I didn't, but I got the 7 of Pentacles.
Okay. They're walking towards each other, like our valet or page is walking towards him with a great big beautiful sword toward the working man.
And he's got the hoe in his hand.
Yeah. Here we're in this kind of concrete environment with gates and buildings. And on your card, there's this kind of beautiful, lush mountain growing. These are absolutely stark and opposite environments. This does not look as enriching as that. Your card feels like the fulfillment of that promise of the Ace of Pentacles.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, seeing the mirror between the sword and the hoe in this person's hand, it also feels like to me that Paige is exiting that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's something of like, take the skills that you've learned from the experiences that you've had and go build something else with them.
Yes, like we had permission to leave, so get up. The next step is to get up and leave, like to actually do the exiting and taking.
It's like, what have you learned from this experience and how can you use that to go make a new one for yourself? I can't tell you. I mean, I've had like some career changes, especially in the past like 3 years. It's been a wild roller coaster of a ride, my friends. But I can't tell you the amount of times, like right now, that I have referenced back to some of the like unfortunate career situations I've been in the last few years of like, oh, I did learn that. Like there's a nugget that I took from that awful experience that I'm bringing with me into this one. And I feel like like the nurturer is saying like, okay, what did you learn? Like what can you hold on to from this negative experience that you're having right now? And how can you just redirect that into something else that is more sustaining for you?
In the page, in all 4 pages, I always see some of the Fool, like some of the beginner's mind, beginning of the journey. Like, and I like the idea of this being a little bit of an invitation to beginner's mind. Like maybe you don't know how to do the farming yet. but you know how to leave and you know how to take what it is that's transportable. All right, are there any final comments? What else would you say? I would say certainly these are not the only 5 voices, but these are the first 5 voices that we thought of, and probably we thought of these because these are like the 5 primary registers that we've worked in. Would you say
Yeah.
that? I would say these are probably the 5.
And I think the whole purpose of this exercise, and I would encourage you who are out there to do this for yourself, is like come up with different voices that you feel like you need. Especially if you read for yourself, like come up with different voices that you feel like you need and play around with reading in those different voices, so that like the whole idea behind this is like these are things that you can access for yourself whenever you sit down with a deck of cards. And it does not matter what deck you sit down with. It doesn't change. It doesn't have to change based on the deck. It could be just your standard go-to deck. That deck can read for you in so many different ways based on what you need. You're still going to get the same answer, sort of, but it's going to come with a flavor that is best suited for what you need in that moment.
Who are your top 3? So I would wrap up by saying my top 3 are probably the best friend, the spiritual teacher, and probably the straight shooter.
My top 3 are going to be the best friend, the nurturer, and the salty crone.
Oh, wow.
I need her. I need her to give me a kick in the pants.
I probably need her more than I invite her in. I'm out here telling stories about Baba Yaga and then running in the direction.
I need her to point out where I'm lying to myself. Like, I need her to, come on, Amelia. Yeah, but we encourage you to do this exercise for yourself and let us know how it went. We'll include down below all the good stuff so that we'll include like a list of all the voices that we used, as well as that link to where you can find some practice questions to work with. Do we want to wrap up with a reading?
Yeah, I think so. I will say if you guys have enough other interesting voices in mind, we can make a follow-up video. That'd be a lot of fun. Tell us who we didn't think of, what voices live in your tarot landscape.
The storyteller in me loves doing stuff like this.
Yeah, this was really fun. All right, for a question for the collective, should I break up with my ex? Or now should I get back? How about what voice of tarot, like what register, what voice do we need to engage with this week?
Ooh. I got the Emperor.
I got the 9 of Swords, speaking of.
Yeah, so I feel like we need someone who's going to tell us like it is.
It feels like a little bit of that dad nurturer or something. Like we need a voice that's capable of holding space for like difficulty and pain, but it needs to be a voice that takes up room and is unequivocal or something. So it needs to like have that double valence, I think. Does that fit in our landscape of 5, or what is that voice called? I think it's grandpa, like moody grandpa. We're like, I don't know. That's an interesting.
It's like the voice of a few words, right? Like it's not going to wax on, but it's also not going to be a jerk.
Yeah. This is not the Emperor in shadow. The Emperor is another fraught archetype for a lot of us. And this feels like the Emperor who nurtures us, right? Like the Emperor who protects and is capable of like holding space through that real difficulty. All right, go ahead and take us home, Amelia.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like we mentioned, let us know in the comments below what are your thoughts about this as just a general, like, do you feel like you read tarot in different voices, or do you feel like you read it in one voice? What are some of the voices that you like to read tarot in? We will, of course, include all of the information that you need below regarding what we discussed in today's video. We'll also include links for where you can find us for our courses, mentorships, and readings. One reading in particular, which is a one-on-one live reading where we walk you through our thought process of reading. So it's kind of like a modeling session where we will sit down with you and answer a question, or either one of us will sit down and answer a question for you, but we'll also kind of work you through the back side of the reading. And it's really for those readers who are wanting to get a reading, but also are wanting to develop their skills as a reader. And we can talk about reading voices in that as well. But yes, we'll include all the info for that, as well as where you can find us on the internet. And until next time, friends, we will see you in the lab.
Bye.